Good, okay, so in this section, I want to give a brief overview of what main text editor options exist today. In the context of Vim and Emacs, you might be wondering what that means because you have Vim and you have GNU Emacs as being the programs, right? But in truth, there are several other forks or variants that have been built by people which offer different inbuilt defaults. And so if you're looking for something more specific, as opposed to the vanilla Vim or Emacs programs, then one of those variants, forks, or distributions in the case of Emacs might be the better option for you, or might be a better option for you. So to get started, we're going to look at Vim. So the first set of options that exist for Vim are, of course, Vim itself and gvim. To have a look at those, we can go to the Vim website. And if we go to the home page here, you can see this is the Vim website. It's got all sorts of information. But if you go to the download page, you can download Vim or gvim. Now, you have access to Vim binaries for Windows and Unix and Mac, right? But if you're using Linux, you also have the package repositories for your distribution, which usually contain Vim anyway, so you can install it that way as well. But here you have the option to install the binaries and all of that. So yeah, it's just Vim and gvim are available here. However, gvim is the GUI of Vim. It is basically just Vim, but it offers you the interface of a graphical interface, or a graphical window rather. So if you're really passionate about wanting a graphical window to use Vim in, then you can do that. But I don't really see the benefit. In fact, you lose a lot of functionality there because you're unable to go back into the terminal to do other stuff that you might want to do. You're stuck in Vim, in other words, right? So that might be a disadvantage. But anyway, you have these two main options, Vim and gvim, both being the main sort of Vim programs. Good. So those are the two programs made by the Vim project. What you have as well is also NeoVim. Now, NeoVim, if we go to the Wikipedia page for Vim, here we go. We can go down to the variants sections, which, yeah, it's got a section on it on its own. NeoVim is a fork of Vim that strives to improve the extensibility and maintainability of Vim. So, oh yeah, I've got a bookmark for it actually. I can just go to the NeoVim website here and read the about page. We can read also here that NeoVim is just a refactor or redactor in the tradition of Vim, which itself derives from Stevie, and we should know this from the history section. It is not a rewrite, but continues after Vim as a kind of extension of Vim. Many clones and derivatives exist, but some very clever, but none are Vim. NeoVim is built for users who want the good parts of Vim and more. The main difference with NeoVim, as opposed to Vim, is that NeoVim uses Lua as its primary plugin language or extensibility language. It does not mainly use Vim script, but it does support Vim script. It does not seek to deprecate Vim script, as you can read here in its non-goals. It just seeks to add Lua. Where does it say that? Here we go. Add Lua as its first class extensibility interface. So it provides that really strong, really integrated extensibility interface from which a wealth of plugins can be developed and have been developed, right? We can go here in the screenshots section to see that in this screenshot here in particular, someone is running a very customized NeoVim, but also the Fuzzy Finder plugin lets you find your files in a fuzzy finding sort of way. And yeah, that's just one example of a plugin that has been developed. I think it's called Telescope. That is the Fuzzy Finder plugin for NeoVim. But because it has this Lua extensibility language, which itself is a fully fledged programming language that is used elsewhere from loads of other projects like Roblox, I think. Because of that, you have a lot of people that are already used to using Lua, but because Vim uses VimScript by default as its plugin language, because it's so specific to Vim, not many people are going to know it by default. So yeah, I think using Lua is a good move on the part of NeoVim. So that's NeoVim. If you want to customize your Vim environment in really the way you want it, you want to customize all the possible features you want, then I would say NeoVim really is the best option for you out of these ones here. But the point is that there are other sort of IDE focused variants of Vim or NeoVim that do exist, and some of the screenshots here show that. So this one, which is showing a Nyancat plugin in UIVonim, whatever that is. I don't know how you pronounce that, but anyway, this UIVonim is UIVonim is actually a fork of Vionim, which is a fork of NeoVim, I imagine, that has a modal IDE as being built in. So it's like NeoVim, but with loads of stuff added on by default. Hence, it is kind of like a fork of NeoVim, but it has all this stuff inbuilt by default, like an IDE. So it's got all these features that you can install straight away, and that is an example of another NeoVim or Vim variant, right? That has an IDE feel. So yeah, that's that. Next, we can go on to Emacs. Now, what Emacs has is vanilla or GNU Emacs. That is the main Emacs program. If I just type GNU Emacs here, I can bring that up. This is the website from the GNU project. And yeah, there's nothing special about it. Again, you can install it from your Linux package repository quite easily, but you can also go to the download page here and, download it for Windows and all of that. So yeah, nothing exciting there. But you can also have a look at all the features it lists or advertises, and it's just got a bunch of other information here. But it is vanilla Emacs. It contains just the default Emacs key bindings according to all the stuff you can find in the GNU Emacs manual. So it's just the default Emacs. It's nothing special. That's what I have been showing you all along and talking about all along. However, you can get distributions of Emacs which essentially load a bunch of configuration scripts on top of GNU Emacs. So the way it works is that you would install GNU Emacs and then install these configuration scripts, either in a pre-packaged sort of way or in a more manual sort of way, but you would install basically a bunch of pre-built or pre-configured packages. You would have key bindings that are pre-built. You would have everything, like every setting you can probably think of, loaded in a slightly different way compared to the defaults, the vanilla defaults, basically. So an example of that would be Doom Emacs, but another example is Spacemacs. If I go to Doom Emacs, you can have a look at its GitHub page and read its intro, and it says, Doom is a configuration framework for GNU Emacs. That's exactly what I was talking about. It's not a separate program, it is a configuration framework loaded on top of GNU Emacs. But it's tailored for Emacs bankruptcy veterans. I have no idea what that means. Who want less framework in their frameworks, a modicum of stability and reproducibility from their package manager, and the performance of a hand-rolled config, or better. So, it's just a bunch of packages you install in a way that is pre-configured, pre-built, so it offers that kind of stability there. So I guess that's what they're pointing to. But you get a bunch of features. It loads a bunch of features and packages, and it's just. I mean, there's not much more to add. It does use evil mode, which I'll talk about later, as its primary mode for interaction, I think. But yeah. That's Doom Emacs. Space Emacs or Space Max is exactly the same thing. It has its own website, and you can just see it uses like mnemonic key bindings organized in a sort of logical way. So, for example, if you press B, it loads a buffer. If you press P, it loads a project, or S, it searches stuff, and all that kind of logic behind key bindings, right? So this is different to having default Emacs key bindings, but it's also different to having default, like, no, yeah, default Vim key bindings in Emacs because you have different mnemonic strategies. So this is Space Emacs. I guess that's the main difference between Space Max and Doom Emacs. I don't know if it's Space Max or Space Emacs. I think it's Space Max, but anyway. It's also discoverable, so you got real-time help on key bindings, you got consistency between functionalities so that the key bindings don't conflict and all that good stuff. So it's pretty much the same idea as Doom Emacs. But as said, these are configuration distributions. You load these on top of GNU Emacs. And you can see here, actually, I just noticed, the best editor is neither Emacs or Vim. It's Emacs and Vim. So it also adds some kind of Vim functionality, I guess, somewhere, but it also has these mnemonic base key bindings, something like that. Okay, so that's it. That's Doom Emacs and SpaceMax, the two main distributions of GNU Emacs. Next, we have Evil Mode, which I just mentioned before. All Evil Mode is the mode from which you can load VI key bindings. So Evil stands for Extensible VI Layer, and it's for Emacs. Now, you can get the main features of Vim using Evil Mode, but you don't have to go through the hassle of like installing a whole distribution of Emacs. Maybe it's simple. Maybe it's just simpler to use a default distribution of Emacs because it's all there, right? It's all pre-configured in a way so that everything fits together nicely. And I say that because I tried Evil Mode. I tried using Evil Mode with the Vim key bindings in GNU Emacs, and in the end I was just like, you know what? If I want to use Vim key bindings, I'll just use Vim. I don't care. Because I found it conflicted in some areas. It didn't work in a seamless way. It didn't interface well or interact well with other modes and all of that. So yeah, I don't use Evil Mode or anything like that in GNU Emacs. I just want to use default key bindings in Emacs. But anyway, the option is there. That's the point of this section. The option is there. You can install Emacs distributions, you can install variations of Vim, or forks of Vim for that matter, and you know, there'll be more distributions of Emacs, I think, but these are the main ones that I know. Next, I want to go through a couple of options if you don't want to use Emacs or Vim. The first question I will ask is, what is wrong with you? I'm joking, of course, but this is still a viable option, right? Emacs and Vim are just tools. Very good tools, and I will stress, I would like you to try them first before you think that you don't want to use them. But if you try them and you think, you know what, I don't like the way it works, it's like, fair enough, you know? There are other options. There are other tools that you can use. And I will just list the main ones that I know here. I'm not going to go into them in detail. But IDEs, I know there is IntelliJ. I've heard good things about that. JetBrains seems to be a good one. Visual Studio Code, of course. Obviously, many people use that. Kate, not many people know about Kate. It is the IDE or IDE-like text editor that comes with the KDE desktop environment in Linux. I run KDE, and so I've got Kate here on my system, but I don't use it. It's just like an IDE. You get your, text editing tabs, and then you have like Git integration, terminal integration, and LSP integration. It's basically an IDE. You also have other editors, just GUI editors. You have Sublime Text, Notepad. Don't use Notepad. I just put it here for the sake of completeness, but yeah, it's terrible. It's not configurable. It's just, yeah, disgusting, as you should probably know, but it's good for basic text editing anyway. You have Notepad++. Nope, sorry, it's just Notepad++. I added a third one there just to make it exciting, but there we go. It is like an improved Notepad. It's got tabs and syntax highlighting and other stuff by default. But yeah, if you're on Windows and you just want a basic, decent text editor, I would probably use Notepad++ if I cannot use Vim or Emacs, right, in Windows. There's gedit or Gedit. This is the GNOME text editor. Other ones that aren't listed here include like Mousepad for XFCE, which is one of the Linux desktop environments. Also, Gedit here, or Gedit, which is the GNOME editor, the GNOME desktop environment editor for Linux. And yeah, pretty much every desktop environment would have its own graphical text editor. So I don't want to list all of those. Also, you have other terminal options, terminal text editor options. Nano is one that's pretty old. It's also a GNU project software. Also, you have Helix, which I think is like Vim, but has slightly different key bindings that can be argued to be kind of more streamlined or, more mnemonic. I guess using that idea from Spacemacs, which we saw, where you have more mnemonic key bindings, B for buffer, for example, etc., etc., etc. So there are obviously others that exist, but these are the main ones that I know of, the main alternatives to Vim and Emacs. And that's it. Those are all the options I wanted to go through. So whether you want to use Vim or Emacs, or you don't care about those, you just want to use some other text editor, hopefully this gives you an idea of what's available to you in brief, right? So I encourage you to just search for what you want and just try out these tools and stick with one that works well for you. I will probably add that it might be tempting to just try one and then be like, oh, that looks nice, and then try another, and then try another, and then try another. I think it helps to just pick one, stick with it, learn to use it well, and then if it really, really, really is an issue, like it doesn't have a feature that you really, really need, then switch and try another one. But I would say with Vim and Emacs, because they are so fundamentally different in the way they edit text, and also they are both fundamentally different to these other kind of editors, I would say it's worth trying Vim and Emacs, like trying them both before trying any others. But yeah, as said, those are the options. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you join me for the next section. Thank you.